ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Duncan Showroom. My name is Bill Levity. Standing in as the introductory factor in behest of Longevity John, who's resting at home tonight. So we send our best out to John. Hope you're feeling better. And this is the beginning of the fall season, although they went last month, right, Tim? With we had a mashup between Love of Words and the regular dress rehearsal Tuesday, which is songwriters and people who come up and play covers and things like that. So it was apparently went off really well. And Sonnet, how do you say her last name, Tim? Labe? Sonnet Labe, who is a poetry professor at VIU, and often comes down to play music, songs that she's written. Did a reading as well as playing later. So that was, I've still got to watch that. Did you see that, John? Did you come last month? You were. You'd met Sonnet before, though, hadn't you? Oh, yeah, she's great. Yeah, interesting young gal. So we're happy to be back, and two new readers. Well, I don't know if Jean's ever read. Have you? You've read before, yeah. So I explained to Malcolm that it's loosely a 5 to 7 minute format. There's only 5 of us. And you can read whatever the heck you want to read, or do a review, or if you've got a novel, do an excerpt, something like that. I have the pleasure of reading tonight from a relative, grandmother of one of our favorite songwriters, Leanie Beanie. And I'm going to get the story incorrect, maybe. Hopefully Ted can help me. This is by June Green. It's called Seasons by the Lake and Prairie Poems. And it's memories of a prairie childhood living in Victoria, BC, and Seasons by the Lake at Harrison's Hot Springs, BC, that's where Leanie met the infamous Dr. Ted. And how old would she have been when you met her, Ted? 15. Wow. And already writing songs, right? Yeah, and coming out. Right. So Beans is one of our favorites, and always we call her the music inspirator, and has been a great boon to the Duncan scene. And I played with her. She plays percussion with me. She plays her own songs. She's playing with Philo recently, and Living Language, and Lennon, and the Hardware Girls, and Beans just loves to play and create. So these are poems from her grandma. June Green. A small world. When our hayloft doors were open, I remember sitting there, with the earth spread out below me, every field a tiled square. The trees that grew beside the creek formed a dark green line that curved along the watercourse wherever it would wind. Sometimes in the distance, a farmer mowing hay would show a small black silhouette that slowly moved away. I knew the earth had many views, but what my eyes could see from the platform in the hayloft seemed a special place to me. This one's called Playing Pirates. One day, for our pleasure, we buried some treasure as if we were pirates of old. A location was found where we dug up the ground with an auger to make a good hole. The place where we played at our pirate charade was close by the farmyard gate, and we found a small tin that a note could go in and recorded our names and the date. After quite a long while, we collected a pile of stones by the side of the creek, some bright shiny rocks that we put in a box with some glass that we wanted to keep. My sister's collection seemed close to perfection, at least to my childish eyes, but I added a snail and a few gopher tails to make it seem more of a prize. Then we lowered it down in the hole in the ground, arranging it all with great care. And sometimes I wonder if all of our plunder remains where we buried it there. There's great pictures throughout. You won't be able to see it, but here's Beanie in the middle of the group of relatives. We did a trip up to Royston this weekend it was Saturday with Eugene Smith, and to see his son. But we also did a little diversion through Royston and Cumberland and came across this town hall that had a plaque for, Beanie, who was it? Her other set of grandparents, I'm thinking?
She's watching right now, so she'll...
you could ask her who it was for a Bennett plaque.
You just did. So
yes, thank you. Thank you. This one is called The Kissing Game, and I think a really good insight into maybe her humor and the strength of the lady. It all began with a shy kiss that barely grazed my cheek, and then he advanced to the sly kiss, which wasn't quite so meek. Then came the sighs and lies kiss, and that was a bit too much, so I gave him a goodbye kiss, but perhaps we'll keep in touch. That's a modern woman right there. My goodness, I like that one.
All right, we got your answer. It was Thelma and Stan Bennett.
Thelma and Stan, sorry, Leans. Yeah. And who are also her grandparents.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Good. Beans gives me these historical stories, and my memory is just like a sieve. Terrible, terrible memory. Choosing a cat. If you need a good mouser, you should have a cat, but choose one with plenty of hustle. A wide-awake cat that isn't too fat, that's alert to the tiniest rustle. When the mice come exploring, you should have a cat that stays on the job till dawn, a big furry pouncer who acts like a bouncer, and soon all your mice will be gone. Yes, I like the sound of that. That hits close to home. Bean's been staying at my place for a while, and it's been a great joy, and she is a great inspiration to seize the moment, you know, when you have a line come into your head, not to let it go. And I'm having a bit of a problem with the four-legged creatures. And my cat's getting a little older, so I'm wondering if he's becoming a lazy hunter. But anyway, this infestation is happening in my ceiling, which is particularly hard to get to and frustrating. It's an oddly built house, and the rafters are kind of I-beams running the length of the building. And so basically they've got all these sections sandwiched together of, 16 inches where they can romp and play, and I can't get at them. So I'm having to formulate a plan. But I thought it fair to give them warning that they were going to be killed at some point if they didn't exit the house. So the other morning I'm banging on the ceiling with a broom and hollering at them, giving them their last fair warning. And so Leanie's line was, if you've never ghost punched a rat through a wall before, have you really lived though? So that one sort of stuck around in her mind for a while, a few days, maybe it was the next day. And it's great what she does. She'll just repeat the line and kind of give it some rhythm and add, find the melody and the rhythm in it and memorize it that way. She doesn't really write things down. And I admire that greatly as a songwriter because she'll carry all the songs in her head, basically. So the next day we sat down and we hammered out this song. If you've never ghost punched a rat through a wall before, have you really lived though? And if you've ever not broken up with a woman who tore you apart, maybe you never, ever, ever faced the rats in the dark. Burn it down, tear down the walls, burn it down. Gut out your heart, tear down the walls, burn it down. Have you ever looked at your lover in the shower and wonder if you said yes too many times? And have you ever caught a glimpse of yourself in the mirror and wondered, how did I get here? Burn it down. Tear down the walls, burn it down. Gut out your heart, tear down the walls, burn it down. And when she calls you up and says, you left some hair at my place, I was wondering if you wanted to come pick it up. And you go, what the actual fuck? Burn it down. Tear down the walls, burn it down. Gut out your heart, tear down the walls, burn it down. So that's the beginning of the song. Yes, I'm going to play the snippet. We'll see if this works. It might be too noisy. But anyway, this is the what we recorded just so we'd remember the melody. We'll see if this works.
You never ghost punched a rat through a wall before. Have you even lived though? If you've ever not broken up with a woman who's torn you apart, then maybe you've never, ever faced the rats in the dark.
Burn it down.
Burn it down. Tear down the wall. shower and wondered, did I say yes too many times? Have you ever caught a glimpse of yourself in the mirror and thought, how the hell did I get here? Burn it down. Burn it down. Tear down the walls. Tear down the walls. Burn it down. Gut out your heart. Tear down the walls. Burn it down. She said, hey, found a hair that you left in my place. And I was just wondering if you wanted to come pick it up. And I was like, what the actual fuck? Burn it down. Burn it down. You tear down the walls. You tear down the walls. Burn it down. Gut out your heart. Tear down the walls. Burn it down. Burn it down. Burn it down. Burn it down.
All right. There you go. From rat pounding walls to poet signal line to poem to rock song in the course of a day. So we'll keep working on that one. Thanks, Beans. See you next week. We'll be playing next week. That's for all of you who have stayed in a relationship or a bad situation too long. Tear down the walls, burn it down. Best advice. I'll try to follow that myself. And so, first up, we have Eugene, stalwart of the Duncan Showroom, longtime supporter, and a very interesting man with a very interesting past. And he's come to share some of it with us today. Come on up, Eugene. I don't know if you want to try the Freda stairs or the safety stairs over here. It's up to you. And welcome once again. Do you remember the last time that you came and read?
2016
Wow, good memory.
was the 30th anniversary of Expo 86.
Right, it was about the structure that is now the heritage, or the cultural center.
Yeah, Kamikan building.
Kamikan building, right.
At the cultural center.
Wonderful. Good memory, Gene. Well, welcome and enjoy.
Okay, so, yeah, that's good. There we go. During COVID, I started reading over some of my food magazines, one called Savour in particular. I've got 22 years of it, so nothing else to read in the house. I started reading the magazines again. And I noticed that you don't read the articles the same, you skim more, different things pop out at you. So there's little tidbits that were coming out, and I just started writing them down and share a few of them with you here as I went through the books. So start off with a couple limericks. All of this stuff is related to food, and it's music and poetry, that sort of thing, but not type of thing you usually find in a food magazine. So 2 limericks, both by Ogden Nash. First one's one of my favorites and the first one I ever learned. So it goes, shake and shake the ketchup bottle. First none'll come, then a lot'll. And the second one, again by Ogden. The cow is of the bovine ilk. One end is moo, the other milk. And I've got a couple of my own, not about food, but fun as well. So in the name of brevity, I tried writing a 5-line poem with the fewest words possible. So this is called Brevity. It goes, cause, effect, solution. Is that not resolution? And the other one's called Busted. It goes, hands up, jigs up against the wall. Your luck ran out, your mom made the call. Enough of them, and then I found this little pearl of wisdom by Oliver Wendell Holmes, Sr. And you have to know that brandy is distilled wine to get this one. So he says, if wine tells the truth, and so have said the wise, it makes me laugh to think how brandy lies. And onwards we went in another magazine. I came across the Abalone Song. It's written by George Sterling in 1905, Carmel, California. It's back when they still had an abalone industry. So it's kind of a ditty that they sang while they were shucking abalones at the tables, and there was nothing else to do, but the stench was horrible. So this is how they cheered themselves up. This is how it goes, short and sweet. Some say that the Lord is fat, and some that he is bony. But as for me, I think that he is like an abalone. And then another thing I noticed were the what I like to call creative compliments to the cook. These keep popping up in different ones. There's all the oldies like finger licking good and lip smacking good. But then there's ones like, my tongue is doing a jig in my mouth. Or, tastes like a party in my mouth. One that you want to go to. And then my favorite, it tastes so good your tongue like to smack your brains out. So, and then came along another magazine. I read an article that was written by a fellow by the name of Joe Gracie. And it was an article about him traveling in Europe, or touring Europe with his wife, who's Kimmy Rhodes, and how they used her tour basically to pay for their culinary adventures. So I noticed at the end of the story that he was from Austin, Texas. So how this all fits in here is a couple years back I met a fellow here by the name of Jeff Plankenhorn. He plays here at the showroom, and he's played the 39 Days of July and such, and he moved here from Austin, Texas. He met and married a girl from Campbell River. And so talking to him before one of his sets at the 39 Days of July, we were talking about the Austin music scene. And he was very specific about the Austin music scene. So he had a little difficulty really explaining what it was all about in the short time that we had, but it stuck in my head. When I read this article and I saw that these two people were from Austin, I'm thinking, well, what are the chances? You know, he's from Austin, or moved here from Austin, and knows the music business down there. He just might know these people. So next time I saw him, I asked him, and it is a small world. So not only does he know them, Gabriel and him are best friends, co-write songs together, that sort of thing. And Gabriel is Kimmy's son and record producer. And the three of them are doing a show on Halloween down in Austin. So shout out to all the Austin people that might be watching and such. So this is the book. It's called Radio Dreams. And I'll just read you a little bit on the back. These guys can write much better than I can, and they're more eloquent about their appraisal of the book. It's a poignant and beautiful woven patchwork of stories and memories of their upbringing and their lives together, intertwined with the culture of Texas, the food, the radio, and the birth and history of the vibrant Austin music scene, from rock and roll through outlaw country. These people's lives were intertwined with a lot of the stars we know. Kimmy writes hundreds of songs, apparently, and have been recorded by all sorts of people. So a few of the people here are, like, just read this a little bit. It says, riding with fellow outlaws, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Cowboy Jack Clement, Emmylou Harris, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Doug Sham, and others. They helped turn Austin into a scene and outlaw country into a sound before facing Gracie's final battle with cancer. Through triumph and tragedy, grief and gratitude, their story speaks of the extraordinary life, inspiring love they shared, and offers comfort and hope to others whose lives have been affected by cancer. So for me, the book was a history book. It was a real eye-opener, reading about all of these people and how they intertwined with these two, but how it parallels my own history. I found out at the end of the book that Joe Gracie and I shared the same birth date, so following along on the history line was pretty easy. I recommend it as a read. It's going to mean different things to different people. The more you know about the music business and the music world, it'll mean a lot to you there. But it's a very easy to read history book. Joe Gracie lost his tongue to cancer, and that eventually killed him. But when he writes, his prose is very conversational, so the book reads like a conversation. There's nothing to tie you up in it. You don't get lost or forget where you were. So 4 days I read the book. It doesn't take long, and it's a very good read, a very good history. So that's about it for me. That's my 5 minutes.
Does someone still have their phone notifications on, dinging? If you wouldn't mind turning your phone off, please. We take no calls during flow. Well, there's Tim. He's going to read something. New to our Eugene, and tell me your last name again. I'm sorry. Joe Baggy, right? And it's Jobaggy. Thank you. New to our flow is Malcolm Crockett, I guess, who met John recently. And Malcolm's card says spoken word artist, and he tells me he's living in Crofton. So welcome, Malcolm. Come on up. I like this, available for appointments. No, that's good. Yeah, you gotta be ready. How long have you been writing?
I've been writing since I was about 12.
Oh, neat. Yeah.
I grew up in Crofton and was part of the St. John's Players here in Duncan, so did all kinds of children's theater.
Oh, wow.
And did theater at Mount Prevost, where I was president of the student council, and played in the McPherson Playhouse, and ultimately played with a number of people in northern BC. I did a Peter Schaffer play that is The Velvet Hand and the Iron Fist.
Right.
And I played the part that Peter Sellers played. And I also played Sky Masterson in Guys and Dolls. So
neat.
it's a distraction from the kind of work that I've been doing.
Right.
I had the real privilege of being a student delegate to the United Nations Habitat Subconference on Social Welfare and Human Settlements.
Wow.
So that positioned me to travel pretty extensively and see a lot of performances. So tonight I'm going to do a couple of performance things.
Right.
One to start out to ground me in my experience in Crofton is the 8-year-old drag queens.
I'll let you go. Well, welcome. And just let me ask you, St. John's Players, what was their timeline? When did they begin in the Valley?
From about 1962 to about 1968.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And
Huh.
it was wonderful musical theater, children's musical theater, 3-act plays, and
Right.
wonderful opportunities for chorus and
Wow.
for
Wonderful.
remarkable roles.
Yep.
Aladdin, the Widow Twankey.
Right.
Some historical British musical comedy, a nice grounding for any other kind of theater.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. I've been part of Shawnigan Players for about 35 years. Our group began in '77 in Shawnigan, so one of the older groups in the Valley. But that's great news. Well, welcome, sir. Enjoy.
As I said, I grew up in Crofton, and this is autobiographical. It's called The 8-Year-Old Drag Queens. One summer afternoon, somewhere around 1969, my friend Fred came over to the house. Weird kid extraordinaire, gadget and science fiction fiend, and 2 feet taller than everyone else in school. He even took pills because he was growing too fast. Nobody dared beat him up because his older brother, he too was big. Yet Fred, too awkward, too fragile for forts in the woods or soccer, he was porcelain. I played with him. Miles and months from parade or Christmas pageant, we liberated one used wedding dress circa 1947 and one blue ball gown, same era. And we posed in front of the chimney where birthday parties and American relatives lined up in front of my mother's flicking shutter. The 4 o'clock shift was just getting off work, roaring past the house in carpools, some of the drivers acting like they've never done anything like it for years, if ever. It bothered Fred. But he would only discuss it when trying to discourage me from other daring designs. The ball gown really didn't suit him. He needed something much prettier. And as a segue to some more serious stuff, I'm going to just reference Gregory Corso and his anti-NAFTA haiku. The Mexican zoo has in pens ordinary American cows. And now for something completely different. I was at one time in my career referencing Stephenson's The Man Called Intrepid, and I came across the herstory of Noor Inayat Khan, who is a gal who was born in Ottawa to a Sufi diplomat, lived throughout the world, and ultimately became the most important opérative pour la résistance in the Second World War. The Allies couldn't have won the war without Noor. And because she did the majority of her critical work in Paris, I'm going to begin this sonnet in French and then switch to English. Noor Inayat Khan. La princesse qui est Noor, née en Ottawa, a grandi à Paris. Elle a les yeux beaux, sérieux, a aimé l'art, a parlé beaucoup de langues. Et quand toutes les autres sont attrapées au milieu de juin 1943, elle a resté en Paris avec un radio. Princess Noor, born in Ottawa, grew up in Paris. She had seriously beautiful eyes, loved art, spoke several languages. And when everyone else was rounded up mid-June 1943, she stayed around with crystals and wires and capably received and capably sent coded messages all over Europe. She was the most important opérative pour la résistance until someone blabbed. Her skin was fair. She wore her hair short for the 40s, and sometimes she wadded paper in her cheeks and patted her shoulders to look different from when she'd regally passed through Paris streets. And if it was safe, and people recognized her. They winked conspiratorially. The princess is still free, until someone blabbed. She was nabbed, taken to Dachau, tué. Perhaps in some other life we were gypsies, Roma, with tattoos and earrings and all sorts of magic. She wore rose and purple, played a high-pitched golden flute, and I would read our changing fortunes, dancing swiftly through the firelight, where the many dark-eyed children fed the pigeons that we trained. I'd also like to acknowledge that Canadian author Sandra Singh Baldwin has written an historical novel about Noor, and it is remarkable. It's called The Tiger Claw. So a big sat sri akal et shukriya to Sandra Singh Baldwin for this wonderful piece of Canadian fiction that I would recommend to anyone for consciousness raising on the role of Muslim women fighting fascism in the Second World War. And now, from my collection of works on historic women, Pavlova, Last Words. Sinews strained for nights of starched tulle, backstage drops wavering in welcome wind like punkah fans. Ballet is hot work. Twirling, touring, years of performance. A pastry chef confected fluffy and rich white cream, stretched caramel to bear her name in marzipan. Pavlova. Oh, the sweet taste of an audience, calling and calling to roses raining at tired feet. This she recalled as she lay so still, so quiet, unruffled, summoning strengths from core of power, called on and coaxed for this last leap, this performance, she commanded. Get my swan costume ready. Then she died. One more? Let's see. This is an elegy, and I do it sometimes for friends who want to have secular rites of passage that take the form of celebrations of life. Sandal Elegy. Like a faithful friend who helps one over sharp stones to mountaintops and uphill and downhill, he carried and protected me until one bleak night in the barren steppes he could go on no more. My first impulse was anger, like some bitter one from olden times, cursing a weary horse if he could go on no more. But then I had a funeral to celebrate my many-weathered friend whose well-worn strap snapped. He'd had a hard life with me. But I treated him well, stitched twice, resoled once, and he could go on no more. No more to level loud, ugly locusts. No more to imprint Goodyear on dusty country roads, nor dance with me. I wish that I and all my friends go in such peaceful silence, no complaints, no regrets, no drama, just gracefully releasing strength and going on no more. Friend, Sandal, your release mirrors the magic of my own impermanence, and I cannot waste fleeting days with too much grief. Knowing this and hours of sunlight, I smile on you who for so many roads was so much a part of me. Cut feet, suntanned, in stiff shoes will miss you, and so will my soul, it must wander some more. For the west is rose and orange, with gum trees silhouetted. By a fountain's whispering ripples, lovers wrestle in the grass. Farewell, friend, you've touched this. I am leaving. Rest in peace. Thanks a lot, folks.
Well, gentlemen, you've already renewed my faith in this format. Thank you. Eugene, did you catch that food erotica in Pavlova? That was pretty good, wasn't it? Yeah. John, do you mind if I keep you to the end since we have another new? You all right with that? Edward, how are you feeling, sir? Would you like to come up and read for us?
Sure. I'll explain the context.
Oh, sure, yeah. Oh, right, the mics. The able and affable Dr. Ted. Come on up. I won't strain your interview skills too long. Just to ask you where you're from, perhaps.
I'm living in Shawnigan Lake at the moment.
Shawnigan Lake! Yay!
You mentioned the players.
The players, you know of us?
No,
No, you're new to Shawnigan Lake?
no 91.
91. Okay, good, yes.
No, 99, sorry.
99. Well, welcome. You all right there? You got enough light?
Yep.
Okay.
Anyhow, the reason that I'm here tonight is because meeting Mark, the beautiful, I think it's the Shemanis bakery that they own. Pardon? That's it. Anyhow, he told us about this this event. My partner, 41 years, Leanne Boschman, Dr. Boschman, is a poet and a writer, and she just came out with a new book of poetry. And she should really be here reading from it, but she was at another. She's taking a sewing course tonight, and anyhow, she's really looking forward to participating in this. I guess it only happens once a month, but I'm sure she'll have a chance to do it. Anyhow, I hope she doesn't mind too much if I choose one of the poems. I'm on the cover. I'm an artist, actually, a painter and a counselor, and so just trying to find a poem. Here's one from Terrace. We lived in northern BC for almost 20 years in Prince Rupert and Terrace. And Leanne taught at the college up there, and she taught women's studies and poetry and creative writing and other courses as well. And then we went we went back to Vancouver and spent 6 years and helped raise our 2 grandchildren who are living in Vancouver. Anyhow, here's a little one poem called Terrace Revisited. At the Saturday morning farmers market, these runty northern apples will likely end up sauced. Cellophane wrapped butter tarts, bread lined up on folding tables, hand knit socks dangle beneath tarps, along with waist aprons. Broods of baby bonnets, bouquets from Portuguese flower beds that brim with red, dahlias, calico asters. I'm a visitor now in this town, my home not so long ago, but long enough to notice new lines crisscrossing onto faces of women in this amiable living room. It's pocked floor, photos of teens in grad gowns. In the drum circle, my hands find each beat again, and I'm lulled a while by this midday rhythm. Then, after goodbyes, surprised by my urge to toss the gift of silver dollar seeds to the wind and run down back alleys pitching apples. Anyhow, I'm going to stop reading there. It's like I said, I feel a little silly reading. Okay. Uh, Here's one called Highway 16 after buying supplies. The world ice blasted, a white crust conceals road signs. Each small town we pass, a moment of loneliness that presses against my chest. Gray horse in a field, two more shelter by a shed. No standing still now. Swirl of snow and cold. We know the distance we must travel. When you speak, I hear dialect of winter, terminal moraine, ridges of glacial debris, sky a hushed shade of lament. Just past the last town lies an overturned snowplow. Silence between us. For miles now, we have known there is no chance of rescue. Here's one for our fathers. It's called Our Fathers, in memory of M. Boschman and J. Epp. That's from my father and Leanne's father. We muse that our fathers who art in heaven now must be doing some sort of celestial calisthenics. We wonder how they are keeping busy those tightly wound fathers who taught us how to make whistles from blades of grass, turn somersaults and play the mandolin. In their last years, they paced, seemed anxious to get somewhere else. Their scuffing back and forth in frayed house slippers, our fathers who did not spare the rod when we were young, who used the strap as their fathers did, or the back of their hands, those same hands that lifted us after falls when we were learning to walk, that steadied us in our first two-wheelers, and now even the accounts of their fathers' use of corporal punishment could mend the gaping contradiction of our fathers' hands. They were awkward, our fathers' apologies. Decades later, when we were adults, they handed us the raw pulp of their regret, and we had to mold it into something we could tuck into our pockets, along with the cold memories of punishment. How when trying to fend off the blows, you also forsook affection and the dappled sunlight of a summer afternoon. It seems old-fashioned now, and I'm not sure what a buggy trace looks like, but I've heard how one used on my father's back, and fists pummeled your father's shoulders and head when the horses got out. Then he took too long leading them back. I'm not quite finished. Now, when I press my ear against these stories, I hear wind tremble, leaves in a poplar bluff. The boy's thin fingers grasp the mane of the horse, and the breath of that horse comes in ragged puffs as they both stand still on the callous ground, bracing for something they could not stop. Maybe I'll thank you for listening.
Well done. I especially enjoyed the one about fathers. I have great regret that I didn't get to know my father better. You know, I mean, I was by far the youngest child, and so he was 45 when I was born. And, you know, after he passed, I realized that I hadn't asked enough questions or really didn't know him as well as I wished I had. That's a beautiful poem. And Highway 16, Doctor. We know where that one is. Highway 16. Is it? Oh, okay, sorry, yes. That's what I'm thinking of. So 16 is the one in... Oh, okay, right. Right, okay, gotcha. Yeah, we know that one too. And what's your wife's name, Edward? Leanne Boschman. Well, thank you for coming and reading those, and I hope we'll get to meet her as well. And thanks to Mark, our intrepid baker, a talented baker, and Mark does a lot of wonderful writing online on his Instagram page as well as coming here. So I always enjoy reading what he's got to. And he's quite a character, isn't he? Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope we'll get to meet Leanne as well. What about you and your painting? Are you still active? Yeah. And do you show anywhere? Or is it just for you? Nice. What's your website called? Edward Epp. Good. Well, thank you so much for coming and reading. That's wonderful. And Mr. John Mowat Stephen, the traveler, I'm traveling through John's eyes as well, being from Ontario and seeing his wonderful images, the bicycle trip, and we've been back several times, haven't you, John? And he informs me he's bought a place in Barry's Bay. Oh my God! You sort of wanted a home, didn't you? I think you expressed that where you were in Duncan wasn't really, you weren't so pleased with the feel of it. Probably is that fair to say?
Well, just over the last year or so, it's just felt like it was time I went home again.
Right.
So I've been here for 26 years. I love this place and the people, the community. But anyway, that was happening. That's right across the north part of southern Ontario is where I grew up, wandering the lakes and rivers and forests.
Yes,
And so
beautiful.
It was good.
Yeah, so it does feel good, that returning and contemplating. Yeah.
Yep, it's good.
Well,
I like it.
welcome, sir. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Bill. You too. I learned about about this gathering tonight. I just didn't been fairly busy and didn't realize that this is the last Tuesday of the month already. And so I just subbed. Yeah, seems like just a couple of weeks ago we were here last. So I saw Bill's email this afternoon. Thank you very much, sir. And I actually put a few pieces together just this evening. Really thinking that what used to be the usual group, John, Mark, and Debbie, you might be here along with Bill and Ted and John, and kind of had those folks in mind when I put this together. But I'll be just pleased to share it with everybody, and we'll just see how it goes. I'd like to offer you something of the Dharma this evening, and. Some time ago, just a bit of a background, I was on a family visit in Toronto, and something I liked to do at that time was to look in various bookstores for poets of nature and spirit. And I was in a Remainders bookstore in downtown Toronto near Yonge and Dundas, and I came across this thin little book. The Mountain Poems, and I dearly wish I knew how to pronounce these people's names correctly, but the best I can do is Xie Ling Yun. He lived in the 4th and 5th century in China, and I opened his book. This is a translation actually done by David Hinton, who lives in Vermont, I believe. And I opened the book to this poem, and I felt that I'd met a Dharma brother from 1600 years ago. In this poem, he mentions the paramitas. It's a part of the Buddhist teachings about paramita. Basically, it's going over, going on toward perfection, which is recognized as, not actually something that's, anyway, that's a very complicated topic, so I won't get into that at all. Here's the poem. Bitter season pure. Dharma masters illumine all they nurture deep. Minds settled beyond appearance and yet devoted to their students. They wander among leaning rocks, rest beneath simple thatched roofs. In the steady vanishing of seasons, they know the deceit of possession. And looking across time's three regions, they find only dream. They embrace the six paramitas, cultivating way through them, and blending thought and silence into a tranquil anchorage, they cherish the recluse depths of living the inner pattern. Xie Lingyun was referred to as a recluse monk. He was recluse in the sense that he was born into quite a wealthy family, and it was required in China of that time that persons of his birth serve as civil servants, and he was very resistant to that. He managed to avoid it for most of his life, but then eventually they killed him. So he did live as a recluse in a mountainous region, the southeast of China. And I think I'll go on to directly on to another poem. This fellow, once again, don't know whether I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but the best I can do is Meng Hao Chan. And he lived in the 7th and 8th century, so a few hundred years after Xie Lingyun. I'll just read a little description about this fellow. He was, rather than being sort of the mountain recluse, aesthetic sort of person that Xie Lingyun was previously, Meng Hao Chan was a farmer and a family man. And so this goes. He is generally considered to be one of China's most important poets. During his life, he lived just at the time when Taoism was coming into China, Buddhism was coming into China and blending with Taoism, and it was quite a rich cultural time. When Zen Buddhism was coming to maturity and becoming widely practiced among the intelligentsia of China. Chan Buddhism not only clarified the spiritual ecology of early Taoist thought, it also emphasized the old Taoist idea that deep understanding lies beyond words. In poetry, this gave rise to a much more distilled language, especially in its concise imagism, which opened new inner depths, nonverbal insights, and outright enigma. It was in the work of Meng Hao Chan that this poetic revolution began, a revolution that marked the beginning of Chinese poetry's first great flowering. He opened the poetic ground that would be cultivated so productively by the great poets that followed, and he was revered by those poets as their esteemed elder, first master of the short imagistic landscape poem. And that's a reading from Archipelago Books about this fellow. And this is once again David Hinton's translation. On reaching the Ju River dikes, sent to my friend Lou. Road weary, giving the horse a break, I find myself gazing at Ju River dikes. The low river is open now, free of snow. On Sung Peak, twilight clouds linger, trailed halfway across empty skies, lit colors surging, elemental and swelling. I'm sending here this moment of itself, how it just keeps unfurling, unfurling. That's from the Mountain Poems of Meng Hao Chan, translated by David Hinton. This, when I read that expression, how it just keeps unfurling, unfurling, sending this moment of itself. So sometimes when I read these fellows, I just feel a sense of joy in the confirmation of my own experience through my practice. And that sense of the present moment just constantly unfurling. Nothing is constant. Just that. Thank you.
And it's good to have you here. Does that mean you're staying as a visitor, that you don't actually have a home here now? Oh, good. Good. Oh, wow. Wow, so we may not see you here for a while. Right. Good, good. Yes, well, that's a good way to live. Eugene Smith, of course, has been doing, his relationship is 18 years young, and his partner's in Oakville. So really, he has a double life in a sense. You know, most of the year here, but a good part of the year spent in Oakville. So it is possible to do. Yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing you here whenever we do. And thank you, gentlemen. What a wonderful evening. I'm going to read one more by June Green. Leanie's still out there. And I hope we do have, for Edward and Malcolm, now Eugene knows where to find us, but you could also, if you wanted to give me your email, I do send out, usually it's more than a day ahead. I think today went out today, didn't it, John? That was a little short notice, but if you wanted just that one notice a month and wanted to leave your email, I'd be happy to let you know, or as a reminder. It's always the last Tuesday. Thank you again. Well, it was a lovely evening, a mixture of readings and book recommendations. One more by June Green. Where was the one I was thinking? Ah, yes, the Prairie Road. Now Beanie told me what Prairie was to June, where she actually grew up. And of course, when I think Prairie, I'm thinking of my parents who grew up in Saskatchewan. But the Prairie Road. I walked to school on a prairie road that tire tracks had made. The grass grew high on either side. It had no trees or shade. But a blackbird sat on a picket post and sang as I went by, on the road beside the fence line, under the prairie sky. When the track came over a little rise where a poplar bluff showed green, it carried on past a farmyard gate, and the schoolyard could then be seen. A small dark shape in an open field with its timbers weathered gray, but someone came to cut the grass, so we had a place to play. A grove of trees made a windbreak on the schoolyard's western face, where we ate our lunch on summer days in a cool and shady place. On the grounds was a little stable where the horses could be tied. Some students came in buggies, while others had to ride. Almost 400 times a year I followed that rutted track, walking beside the prairie fields, 2 miles there, 2 miles back. In summer I stopped at the poplar bluff and sat in its dappled shade, where I looked in the branches overhead for nests the birds had made. With only another mile to go, I knew it would not take long. Then I would be on my way again, cheered by the blackbird's song. And it's a picture of June with her dog Lassie. It's a beautiful shot. I think of that song, Blackbird. Here I go, singing low, Bye Bye Blackbird. That's an old one, right? That was one of the ones we used to sing in the car. Any idea who wrote that? Bye Bye Blackbird. That's probably what it's called. Yeah, thinking of those classic car sing-along sessions. Right. Bye Bye Blackbird. Oh. That's there's memories of my father. Those were the days when you could lie across the back of the back window in the Falcon, right? Yeah. Travel down the road laying in the back window. Anyway, thanks again.
Wait.
What?
So Bye Bye Blackbird
Oi.
was published in 1926 by Jerome H. Remick and
Yeah.
written by composer Ray Henderson and lyricist Mort Dixon.
All right.
And it was first recorded by Sam Lannon's Dance Orchestra in March 1926.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. It's good to get the facts. Well, thank you again, gentlemen. A most illuminating evening and really wonderful. Thanks to all of you and to the doctor, to Longevity John. Oh, I will tell you before you go. The Eugene Smith show has been delayed a bit. We used to do that at Tuesdays at 5 with musical guests, and Gene is going back to Ontario, so we may continue in January. We are doing the Crucible here, starting November 24th, I think, Ted. So Longevity has a great sense of staging. We did August Osage County with the players right in the middle here and audience on 3 sides. So it's a really intense and wonderful place to do theater. So I hope you'll come and see the Crucible in the round. And thanks again to John and Ted. And John, hope you're feeling better. Good night, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Let's keep it simple, let's keep it sincere. I feel good, and now I'm here. I got a tide in my flesh. There's a moon in the sky. I've never been so low. Here's the thing about the tide, I'm on the rise up. I'm on the rise up. Yeah, I got a tide in my flesh. There's a moon in the sky. When I get low, I get low. When I get high, and I hang it out the window. I sing it in the wind. I feel good, I feel good, I feel good again. I get a lightning in my chest. Let's be honest, let's be right here. Sometimes there's just no